Oh, hey, welcome to the Day for Night Film Podcast. I'm Jeffrey Bützer. Thanks for tuning in. Today I got a special guest. I got the author of The Vine Who Ate the South and the director of this documentary here, Seven Signs. His name's the Colonel. It's the Colonel J.D. Wilkes from the legendary Shack Shakers. Good buddy of mine. Talented man, does many things. He draws, he writes. He writes songs, he plays the banjo and the mouth harp, and many, many, many things. All right, come on in, JD. We're gonna talk about some movie. Hey, buddy.
There I am.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. Yeah. Is that too much headroom?
Now you look great. I like to squeeze in real
Thank
tight, so we'll make it look weird perspective. It look good. Yeah, I was holding up your book, and you made a
Cool.
movie in 2008, right?
Yeah, that's that. That's that one. Seven
Yeah.
signs. And I have enough B-roll left over to do seven signs. No, 14 signs or
Oh
seven
yeah.
more signs, like spray paint letters.
Yeah, I
So cut
recommended
that
it.
all together.
Is it streaming anywhere? Like, or do you just buy it from your site? How do you get that one?
Yeah. Now somebody bootlegged it, had it up on YouTube, and I yelled at them. They took it
Oh,
down, and then because I think they had monetized it, and then there's no way anyone can see it now unless I sell them the DVD, which no one buys anymore. But
I bought one
it's
from you.
kind of like it's a very politically incorrect kind of film. Now I look at it, it's got all these Dixie flags in it. It is, even though like the message is weird is good, and there's all these kind of people bucking the trend, doing it in the old fashioned or sort of weird Southern folk art damaged way. But people might not understand how. Heck, that was 2007. It came out, I believe,
Oh, okay.
and that's a big difference. Well, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. It feels weird that that's a long time ago. That's around the time we met. I um I always try to connect the dots of how I know people, and I don't know when you remember meeting me, but I had talked to one of your guitarists who's playing with you now, David Lee, back on the phone days before everybody texted Facebook about playing drums for
Right.
you guys. Yeah, but I
Right.
don't remember when we met.
Well, I think you wanted to meet Dwayne Dennison, or you wanted to talk to him about something guitar related. And really, when I started realizing you were a genius, was when I was privy to y'all's conversations. Even though Dwayne was kind of, he's not one of those guys who want to hang out and talk, but you
Yeah.
got more out of him than most people do. And I think he could tell that you meant what you were saying, and weren't I don't know poser. So I that's when I sort of like when I started paying more attention to you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think because I remember I feel like I interviewed you over email before we actually physically met in person. Because I used to write for Dry Ink, and I think we did like a print interview. But yeah. So my first film question. This is a film podcast, I guess. Is what's the
Yeah,
first movie you remember going to see in the theater as a baby or child?
yeah. I think I was a baby seeing Fantasia,
Okay.
and after that, I believe it was Bugsy Malone.
Yeah, that's the one we
Uh,
talked about doing.
right. Yeah. Well, that's kind of why it's burned in my brain because it's such a bizarre movie. Uh, I mean, it's really. I'm not sure if it's for kids. It's got oddly sexual. And so maybe that warped me. I don't know. The
Yeah.
Fantasia though.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, for those of you that don't know, Bugsy Malone is like a gangster musical, and all the actors are like under 13, I believe, or under 12, and it has a
Right.
really young Scott Baio and a Jodie Foster, and it's
Yeah.
the acting is so like stilted and strange, and then like
Yeah.
they shoot each other, but I think they have like eggs in their guns or something. Is that
It's
what it
a
is?
marshmallow paste or whatever you call it. It's
Oh
marshmallows.
yeah, because they'll like mow people down. Like they'll come in and they'll do like classic gangster scenes where they shoot a guy in a barber chair, but they just mow him down with like white splatter. And yeah, there's a lot
Yeah,
of
instead
weird
of
like
blood, it's kind of bukkake ish. And I don't think that escaped the creators either.
No.
Where they're shooting all these 13-year-old girls with marshmallows. Like it's kind of a Freudian thing.
Yeah.
I look back on it now and I go, oh, those guys knew better. They knew better
Yeah.
than that.
It was a pretty there was a lot of like sort of unsettling use of like little kids in makeup that remind me of whatever the Tiara show, Toddlers and Tiara. There was something a little
yes,
insidious about it.
The burlesque routine by Jodie Foster and them. It's just it's amazing what they could get away with back then. It was like I don't know. Now I'm thinking about it, it was really it did look more historically correct, period perfect than some, like even maybe even Bonnie and Clyde, where they're trying to be kind of more hippie and mod. But they were really going for the 30s look or the 20s, the flapper into gangster era. I thought they kind of nailed it. But it has these kind of oddly, what do you call it, pedophilic kind of moments that are like odd to look back on now as an adult.
I think it was like the year before Taxi Driver too. So I'm surprised Jodie Foster is doing all right. That would have messed me up as a kid doing those movies back to back.
I know she's like one of the child actors that kind of went through the worst and in a way, but she kind of came out, even like the Ronald Reagan assassination attempt where like, what's that guy's name? Huh?
Oh no, agreeing with you.
Yeah, he did it to impress her.
Yeah, that poor girl. I think she's doing all right. Seems like it.
She's doing all right.
I'll let you talk about the movie you selected. We went through a few choices, and I think you were trying to stump the band because I know a lot of movies, and you picked a propaganda film called "If the Footmen Tire You, What Will the Horses Do?" directed by Ron Ormond from 1971. And what I learned about this movie is one thing I found fascinating is that like propaganda films in general are interesting because technically the first narrative movie, Birth of a Nation, is a propaganda film, and so it kind of like it's one of the first genres of movie. And I guess the guy Ron Ormond that directed it, he was making like these like women and like there was a movie called Outlaw Women and a sort of like menstrual racial movie called Yes Sir, Mr. Bones, which is a pretty good name. And I guess he was doing these exploitation movies, and then he had a car accident, like a near-death experience, where he found Jesus Christ, and then he started only making Christian movies, I guess. And so this one is all about how communism is going to run Christianity out of America, right? And I'm curious, how did you come across this movie? And tell me about your relationship to this film.
I want to say I saw it in school. I went to a Christian school. It was one of those things that they wheeled out and projected, or they had a big 80s red, blue, green projection TV. They wheeled it out. I think by that point the film strips were gone, but I think I saw it in school. It was like left over from the 70s, and it was babysitting us in some chapel service, or a lock-in or something. And it just kind of warped me in a good kind of way, I think. The dude that they hired to direct it, he was a what do you call it? A B grade movie.
Yeah, he made like all these exploitation movies that were like pretty like violent and
this one's violent too.
Yeah, it's very violent. I was explaining it to my family at dinner, and I was like, it's strange because there's like children being decapitated and like stuff like pins being shoved in their ears, but somehow it's not really that upsetting as a grown man watching it now because it's so hokey. It's like I don't know, you don't feel like any sort of like danger. Or like they don't do a good job at making it feel real at all. It's just like kids with ketchup poured on them laying on the ground, like sticking their tongues out with their eyes closed. And I mean,
that's not for camp value. That's just low grade, poor effort, like total
oh, I
kitsch.
know.
Yeah.
It's very
The
unintentionally
scene where the
campy.
kid gets the stick run through his brain, and where
Yeah,
you can tell that it's not a straight line. It's like Steve Martin's arrow through the head. And then
yeah.
I read that they actually gave that kid Ipecac to drink for a more
because he throws
realistic
up.
vomiting scene. So that
Yeah.
bothers me.
Oh, yeah. That was
I
the
don't know why
grossest
there's
part to
child
me.
abuse in all these movies I'm suggesting,
Yeah,
but it was child abuse to make us watch it.
yeah, totally. It reminded me of those like videos. I don't know if you've ever had a normal job. I've had a lot of them, and
Yeah,
sometimes when you work, like I worked at movie theaters for a long time as a projectionist, and
I
we
did
had all
too.
these like, oh yeah, we had all these videos that we had to watch like in the '90s, like explaining like how not to sexually harass and not to be racist, and it reminded me of those. And the the first one I saw was these two guys like behind a counter, and this movie reminded me of this. And they're like cleaning popcorn poppers and stuff. And then this
Yeah.
girl walked up, and it's this like elderly Chinese woman. And she's like old. And when she walks away, he's like, "Bro, did you see the on her?"
Oh,
And he goes, "Yeah, I know, man. All I want to do is a zoom, zoom." And
I
that was
think
like
I've
their way of
seen that.
depicting sexual harassment. It was like, this kind of any kind of propaganda is just strange and funny in its own way. And like you said, I don't think it was intentionally campy. It's just the like if you describe this movie, it sounds so unsettling and upsetting, and it is.
Yeah, I think I worked for a movie theater. I was an usher, but I remember that scene somehow. Like it, you just pulled it out of like the
That's
cobwebs.
funny. It was
Yeah,
United.
there was a Cinemark theater I worked at. I don't know about you.
Oh, okay. They probably used the same ones, but yeah, there was the all I want to do is a zoom, zoom, always stuck in my mind. And then one
Yeah.
always stuck out to me was this guy, like the woman's counting inventory or something, and she tries to walk out, and he puts his arm up to block her, and he's like, "Why don't you go on a date with me?" And she's like, "No, thank you." And he goes, "What? A theater manager's not good enough for you?" That would that would go. But but yeah, then I was just saying in the question, I don't know how we'll edit this, whatever, we'll fix it. But no, I was saying how like when you describe this movie, it sounds like Pasolini's Salo or something because it's like decapitation. But like when you're watching it, like I said, I didn't really have like any sort of emotional reaction to any of the kids getting killed.
Yeah.
And the director opens the movie saying that everything is true, which
Yeah.
I love.
I'm just
He's like,
wondering why the Russians are going to invade us by horseback.
yeah, it's a long ride.
But anyway, it's a Cold War exploitation movie of fears of USSR and or their influence on culture. That's basically what it is for the viewers that don't know. And it was shown to us to keep us on the straight and narrow, and but it made the straight and narrow seem so corny. You kind of like we're kind of, oh, I want to ride a horse with that guy,
Yeah,
don't put a stick in my ear. I'll hop on a horse. Is that all it is? And then they had
yeah,
this other kind of a sub plot line about a woman who's hearing Reverend Estes Perkle, who's the preacher who funded him and his church. I think it's a Locust Grove church somewhere in Mississippi. I think it's I can't remember where it is. Locust Grove, Mississippi. He funded all this, the church did. And he's actually preaching throughout the entire movie
yeah.
in a church. And there's a harlot that has come in to hear the message. And his sermon is so powerful that she does the altar call at the end and gets saved. But so you got two things going on there. So it's multi-layered in its cheesiness.
Yeah, it was really bizarre. I haven't really seen too much like this. Of course, it made me think of like Reefer Madness and stuff like that, where like smoking marijuana leads to like you getting in a car and running over your best friends. It had that kind of
Yeah.
a sensationalism to it. I like several of the scenes where he was like, I like where the Fidel Castro guy who was playing the Castro looking guy was yelling at that girl about if she believes in Jesus or not, and how
Yeah.
I don't know. The whole thing was pretty preposterous. Have you seen many propaganda films like over the years?
Well, just I guess the campy ones. I'm not really a big film buff. I just, in my opinion, all movies are propaganda in some way. I have a
Yeah, that's
weird.
true.
I tend to like. And I think I gave up because it was so much work to dig for good, challenging or interesting stuff that trips my trigger. I just have a narrow bandwidth for what interests me, so I don't know. When I'm not so art damaged that some vague thing that's just nothing but visuals, or like some pretentious thing that's, I don't know. I think I can't figure out what I like. I laugh at films like this, Footmen Tire You, but and I'm a Star Wars, because I do like those kinds of things. It's kind of like a cheesy thing I like. Lord of the Rings, and I do like that. But I think one of the things I'm more am into is I'm getting more and more into is animation. And there used to be an animation film festival here in Paducah, and and the artistic ways people do that. Maybe that's the Fantasia effect on a young
Yeah,
mind. You know, but I tend to like I will go and watch that before I'll go watch what's the new thing everyone's talking about. I'll watch some sort of I don't know, experimental or vintage even animation, just because I think it's amazing. Not such
yeah,
a big fan on computer animation, but some of that is amazing.
yeah. There's Did you ever happen to see Triplets of Belleville, that French one from about 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago? It's
Oh, I
it's.
don't.
I think you'd like it. It's one of the. It's like it's a hand drawn one, and it's in the style of like 101 Dalmatians. I actually went to go see it with our
Okay,
mutual friend P.W. Shelton, and yeah, you should check that one out. I bet you'd really like that because
say the
it's
name
about this
again.
guy. It's called Triplets of Belleville.
Oh, maybe I think I did see that.
Oh,
Trip.
okay, yeah, it's not. There's not a lot of talking. It's about a bike race, but
Yeah.
do you have like a classic film that like is really well revered that you just can't stand?
Oh man.
I think I lost you.
Oh, I'm here.
What's going
Hello.
on? Yeah, I don't know. It might be me. Let me see. Let me move my computer. Oh, there you are. Okay. So yeah, I was saying, you there?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yes, I
my
can.
question was, do you have? Is there like a classic film that's really well loved that you can't stand?
Oh man. I think Kramer versus Kramer for some reason comes to mind. There's
Yeah,
some of that
I could see
70s
that.
stuff that's exploring relationships between these New York Yankee hand wringing people. It's just like, oh my
Um,
goodness, all Academy Awards. And I just, oh man, it's like, I
I
guess
never saw that.
I don't mind exploring that subject matter, but it's just, I don't know. It's some of that stuff, it just doesn't age well, I guess.
Oh. You made me think of when you said 70s. Um, when I was getting into movies and I was probably maybe 15 or 16, I went to this video store and the guy that worked there described Taxi Driver like this. He goes, "You got to see this movie, Taxi Driver. It's nuts, man. De Niro drives around in a cab with a mohawk with guns up his sleeves and stuff, killing pimps and stuff." So I'm thinking it's going to be like the Terminator or
Yeah.
something, where it's just like this crazy action movie with like a guy in a mohawk, like a punk guy. I was like, that sounds like the best movie ever. And I was 16 years old. I pop it in. I probably watched Evil Dead 2 days before that, and you can imagine my experience watching Taxi Driver at 16. So Taxi Driver
He,
ranks up there as one of those movies that like is really well loved that I don't really like that much. Um,
oh,
I mean, it's
yeah.
good, but I think it's because of
It,
the way I
it's
watched it.
good, but I forgot really most of it. I mean, you're looking at me, and that's about it.
Yeah,
I like the thing that comes out of his sleeve. But
right.
yeah, I think what it is, there's two things that might have happened there. He disappointed you because you thought it was going to be like a revenge, shoot 'em up, and you're a kid and you're wanting explosions and all that, and it's not that kind of movie. It's more like Catcher in the Rye or something. And so that disappointed you, but he might have tricked you into a love of fine films in a way, because
I think that's what he was trying to do, because he was a video store clerk guy, and I mean I was renting like Woody Allen and Kubrick and stuff like that, but the way he described it, I mean I thought it was going to be like I said, like an Evil Dead kind of just nuts. Yeah, man.
Right.
Another said, okay, so when obviously you had this like link with Southern Gothic things. I even remember reading an article with you talking about Flannery O'Connor in some Georgia magazine. Have you seen the Wise Blood film, the John Huston movie?
Yes, I seen it many times. The only
So you like that one?
criticism I have, of that is the soundtrack. It's just
Oh,
wacky banjo music the whole time. It's
yeah.
like, oh my goodness. Billy Bob got the music better in Sling Blade when he went with is it Brian Eno or Daniel Lanois or something, and did an atmospheric thing.
Oh
with
yeah.
the same kind of stark Southern Gothic content. I'm not. I mean, I know Flannery O'Connor is considered a humorist, but it's not like wacky.
No,
it's banjo music. It's like, and I'm a banjo player.
Yeah. The whole time I was watching it, I was worried how they were going to handle the gorilla that when he goes and steals the gorilla costume, because it's such a big part in the book that I love so much, and I was a little disappointed in that section, because to me that's like a big part of the book that I love. But yeah, I've grown to like the movie. The first couple times the music was like a little hard to get into. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Billy Bob Thornton, because that's another one that was like a big movie to me, Sling Blade, because it came out when I was maybe 17, and I first started working at a movie theater, and I'd watch Roger Ebert, and he'd review stuff, and I'd go see like every small movie, I'd watch everything, Independence Day, and Sling Blade like just blew my mind. And
it might be my favorite movie. I don't know.
It's really good.
But everybody's seen it, and it's cliche now, I guess. But I think it's definitely in my top 5. I put it up there, and that's the kind of thing I love, the atmospheric Southern Gothic, not the not too. Not too. I mean, I like Joe Dirt too, but you know what I mean. I don't like the total cliche, unless it's a comedy like that. I prefer the sort of like atmospheric depictions where like things are kind of suggested and they don't just fill in because that's what a book does. There's a little theater of mind going on. Wow, that's what I think I like. I'm in a theater watching the movie, but the movie allows a little theater of the mind to fill in blanks as I'm in the theater. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Like, vagaries,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally get it. Yeah. But yeah, that's funny. It's one of your favorites. There's so much. I haven't seen that movie in probably 15 years, and still there's so many scenes that are just like tattooed on my brain. Like Dwight Yoakam's entire performance is mind blowing. Like nobody had really seen him do that. He'd been in a couple movies, I think, but and like everybody's in it is super good. I like Vic Chestnut and like and all those guys. It's really good.
Who was it?
Oh, I just said I love like Vic Chestnut and then the band.
Oh,
yeah. I wish Billy Bob would have made more, directed more. I know you're friends with him. You need to talk him into directing some more stuff. I'm sure it's just an issue of getting things made anymore, but I wish he would have gone more in that direction.
Well, he said that he does one for them, takes the money, and does 2 for himself. So for every Bad Santa, he does a Daddy and Me or a Sling Blade.
Oh, okay.
So like that's the way he looks at it. So that's pretty good, And Bad Santa's hilarious, I think. And
that's great.
But then he takes that money and earmarks some of it to make these little films that are. And I know that he told me that he looks for he's bought the rights to certain manuscripts to in the future turn into
cool.
not the manuscript, but like novels and short stories and things like that. He'll go
I know
ahead
what
and
you
get the
mean.
rights of the ones he loves the most, including one. I think he had one that he told me about John Faulkner's, William Faulkner's brother, that no one knows about. And he says he prefers him. So I started reading his stories, and he would be a kind of a Southern humorist more. It's not laugh out loud. It'd be kind of more of a but yeah, that's the one thing I miss in Faulkner is any kind of come up for air humorous moment like Flannery gives you, you know.
Yeah.
And there's too much theater of the mind going on there.
Flannery was the first like fiction author I liked, because I don't really I'm such a movie guy. I don't really like reading fiction. I feel like if I'm reading, I need to learn something, because I put so much just stories in my mind with movies. But her stories, obviously this podcast isn't about her, but but Flannery's O'Connor. My first cat was called Flannery, and she left a big impact on me. So you don't watch, so you're not a big movie guy. So like when you're on tour bus, you don't like pop in a movie or anything.
I mean, I'm more on planes. I'll watch, I try not to for some reason, like I'm just not in, I don't want to have my brain too influenced, because I do storytelling more. I write and I'm real paranoid maybe about picking something up, but that happens anyway. So I don't know, and I don't really read that. I read like when I go in for a movie, when I go read a novel, it is because I have to. There's something about that story that I got to get in my brain, and I think it's more like it fuels me, it charges me to create. And I think the movies that I like inspire me to want to create something as good, and it's and there's certain ones that just call louder than others, and then I dwell there in that world for months, or if not years, and then I go on to the next. And yes, of course, there's little films and movies I see along the way, but the ones that really get me are they call my name, and I have to go see them. It's like the True Detective, the first season of True Detective.
Oh, yeah.
Like I thought it had that kind of vibe we're talking about with the ethereal music and the Southern Gothic slow burn. Thought that was a really great series.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, your buddy, going back to Billy Bob, the first season of Fargo, his character was pretty awesome. He was just such a like scamp. Did you watch that season of Fargo he was on?
Yeah. See, that's another thing. I'm out here where there's no cable, or I guess I could get it. I don't know. I got this phone. I should just watch it. Everyone was telling me that, and I think what it was is I was mad because he went and did Fargo, and it got in the way of us carrying through with the Jerry Lee Lewis record we were talking about producing.
Oh, man.
So the production of that got in the way of something that would have been awesome. But so that was the only thing. So I'm not upset anymore. So I should go back and watch it.
It's good. Sure. Yeah, he's so funny in it. He's like a troublemaker. There's a cut scene I love where he's walking through a grocery store just messing up stuff, and there's like a I don't know, there's like some sort of mix, and there's no nuts for kids with peanut allergies, and he grabs a handful of peanuts and mixes them in the bottom. Stuff like that just cracks me up.
That's funny.
Man, we're about to run. So let's see. So what all do you got going on right now? I know are you on tour? When are you going on tour? Pretty soon? I saw some dates.
Well, I'm going to be playing a few gigs here and there. October, I'll be playing out a Dude Ranch in Eastern Kentucky for like a week. And then I'm going down to Florida with the Shack Shakers and a little out west. And I think that ought to be about a month-long tour. If I live that long, we'll see. There's talk of going proper out west, either the end of the year or beginning of next year. So we'll see what happens. I think so far it's really just a matter of November being the Shack Shaker run down south.
Okay. Well, yeah, we'll put links up so everybody can find you guys. So before we go, we're gonna I think we each have a film recommendation. I didn't get the poster up for yours. What's the movie you wanted to recommend to people to watch? And
Well,
it's on YouTube.
it's a documentary on a cappella mountain singing, Appalachian a cappella balladry and singing. The old broadsheets. It's called "The End of an Old Song," and it's by John Cohen, one of the Smithsonian Folkways song catchers and archivists. Passed away a couple of years ago, but "The End of an Old Song." It's black and white reportage, real raw, 16 millimeter, but beautiful sound, a beautiful soundtrack. It's another one of those Southern haunting things that I'll have to watch once a year.
Oh,
and
cool.
If it's not feature length though, but if you want a feature length one, I'd suggest watching Crumb.
Oh yeah, Crumb's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. My recommendation was a documentary called "In the Realm of the Unreal." It doesn't really tie in too much with what we're talking about because this guy's from Chicago. I just was trying to think of a documentary I love. It's about an outsider artist, Henry Darger. He was like a janitor who was mentally ill, and after he passed away, they found thousands of drawings and novel. He wrote possibly the longest novel that's ever been written, and he wrote a second novel. It's like a 10,000 page story about a tornado, and the guy was just nuts, and his art's wonderful. And yeah, that's my recommendation. And when we air this live, I'll post the link to your the movie that you recommended because I found it. It's all over the place. But cool. Thanks, JD. It's good to see your face. Hopefully, I see you soon.
Hope to see you soon too. Yeah, and hopefully we'll tack on an Atlanta date on our way to Florida. And tell Dexter hello from JD. Hello to Dexter.
Yeah, he's coming up next. About to see your buddy Dex. All right, cool. Thanks, JD. Have a good night, man.
We'll see you.
See you, buddy. Thanks. All right. Well, that was a fun talk with my buddy JD Wilkes. Be sure to read his book, "The Vine That Ate the South." Why can't I get to look good? Yeah, he's a great dude. Good author. All right, my next guest is legendary musician Dexter Romweber, and I don't say this about everybody, but he's one of the reasons I play guitar. He's one of my all-time favorite guys. I don't go to a lot of shows anymore because I got a bunch of kids, like at least two. I got two, but I never miss a Dex show unless I'm, sick in bed or something like that. And so, yeah, I can't say enough good things about this guy. So without further ado, Dexter Romweber. Hey, buddy.
Jeffrey, yeah. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. It's good to talk to you on the internet. I haven't seen you, and actually, I've seen you pretty recently. We played together a few months ago.
Yeah, we need to do another show.
Yeah, man, come on down.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you first, do you remember the very first movie you ever went to go see as a kid?
Man, that is a really good question. Jeffrey, I think it was the Poseidon Adventure, 1972.
Oh, wow.
But I know I know there was one before that.
I know you have a lot of. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I just said I know you've got a big family. Did you guys all go to movies together? Was that like a thing with your family?
Oh yes.
Yeah, us too. I talked about on the other one. My first one was that Tarzan movie, Greystoke, and the second one was Top Gun. But yeah, it's always like an interesting thing, like thinking back as like a little kid seeing your first movie and how mind blowing it is.
So, what year were you born?
I was born in '79.
God, man, you're a youngin'.
Yeah, I'm just a baby.
That's wild, man. Because I mean, I was born in 1966. You know.
Yeah, you got a couple years on me.
Way back in the day, man. 1966, the world was way different, you know.
Yeah, a little bit, man. So I asked you to pick a movie like I do with everybody, and we didn't go back and forth. You picked one movie, and it's The Manchurian Candidate. And it's funny you mentioned it because this is one of the This is my DVD copy over here. It's a great one. This is one of the first movies when I got into film as a teenager. After I was like, watching Terminator and RoboCop. When I got into like films by directors I knew, or like started to learn directors' name. Manchurian Candidate was one of the early first ones I just fell in love with. And it's one of those movies like Goodfellas where if you start it, I don't know how you can stop it. It's just so good. How did you come into contact with it? Why did you pick that one?
Well, I first saw it, I guess it was back in late 80s or early 90s. And I picked it because I think we're all that. I mean, everybody is sort of a Manchurian Candidate. But I don't mean that that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Even though the movie is totally incredible.
Oh, it's
Now
insane.
what I mean is that we're all like that. I think we're all highly conditioned. And
Yeah.
I think we're highly conditioned from our family, and I think we're highly conditioned by our society, and even for some, highly conditioned by the political world.
Yeah, for those that don't know, it's about a woman. Angela Lansbury plays a politician's husband, and her son is came back from the war, like basically brainwashed, and they can send him a code through a game of solitaire, and whenever they give him the code, he just goes into like a trance where they can bark any order at him, and he'll do it. And another thing that's interesting is I didn't grow up with a very political household. Like my family wasn't very political at all. They barely talked about it. So when I watch political films, I usually put my political beliefs aside or ideologies and just watch it as a film. So like whether I'm watching JFK, I'm really just watching it for the story. And so it's funny when I watch this now again because it's been about 10 years. Yeah, I pick up on more of it because I didn't even really think about it a lot when I was 16, 17.
Yeah.
But a funny little thing about this movie is Angela Lansbury plays Lawrence Harvey's mom, and at the time he was 34, she was 37, playing his mom, which I love.
Wow, man, she looks a bit older.
Or he looked younger, I don't know. But yeah, it's got a great cast. It's got Janet Leigh. Do you know that character actor James Edwards?
Yeah.
He's a black guy and he's in Steel Helmet. And it's cool because I had seen all of Kubrick's movies and he's in one of Kubrick's first movies, The Killing. He has like a really great role in it. And he was one of the first character actors I learned his name. I love him. You got him. And this is really the only Frank Sinatra movie I like. I typically don't like him as an actor very much. Do you like Frank Sinatra as an actor very much?
I tell you, Jeffrey, there's some movies you should check out that you probably like if you haven't seen them of Sinatra. And before we got on this thing, I'm sitting around learning Sinatra songs.
Oh,
the one to find, guy, is The Joker is Wild. It's the greatest film, man.
okay.
Have you seen
I'll write that one down. No, I'll write that one down.
Yeah.
I'll check that one out.
Well, as a performer, man, I think you totally understand it. And what it's about is a real life comedian that lived back in the day, Joe E. Lewis. And in Chicago, he had his brains bashed in and his throat cut because the gangsters didn't want him doing his show at another club. And Sinatra plays Joe E. Lewis. And it's all about nightclubs, relationships that fail. And Joe E. Lewis is a really bad alcoholic. And he's trying to make a comeback. Well, it's about his career all through the dives and nightclubs and recovering from, getting beat up by the gangsters. And it's about his relationships that fail because of the lifestyle he lives. Man, it's great. And as a nightclub performer, I think you'd really understand it, man.
I'll check that one out. Yeah, I mean, I don't have any sort of anything against him. I just typically when I've seen him in movies, I didn't love him, but this one I really like him, man. Did you ever see the remake with Denzel Washington of Manchurian Candidate?
Yeah, I certainly did.
Did
And
you?
I'm a
What'd you think
fan
of
of
that one?
Denzel, but it didn't compare, of course, to the original, but I really liked it. Yeah.
Well, it's strange because it's like how they say like it takes a lot of good people to make a terrible movie. I think it was made with the best intentions, and I mean you had Meryl Streep, Liev Schreiber, Denzel Washington. It was directed by Jonathan Demme. I mean, it sounded like it was going to be like incredible, and it's so forgettable. I don't remember. I mean, I saw it, and I can't tell you anything about it, and that's rare. This movie I love, and it's directed by John Frankenheimer. I don't think I said that. Um, and one thing is, I'm not a big like nerd about like how things are shot. I don't know a ton about cameras and stuff, but this movie looks so cool because it's all shot in wide lenses, so everything's in focus the entire time, and it almost looks like a newsreel through most of the movie. And yeah, it's really beautiful. That shot that sticks in my head is that scene where he has to go in and assassinate his father-in-law, and with the milk carton. Do you remember that part?
Absolutely.
That's like, man, that like when I was like looking at movies, like when I was trying to learn how to make them and stuff. That shot, he walks in and like pops him with a silencer and goes through the milk jug. I mean, it looks so modern, but yeah, it was. I
Well,
guess
I
it
think
got.
old movies are generally better than new movies. I mean, my favorite movies are old movies, and I don't
There's
mean
the
to
thing.
discount uh, all modern movies because there's many I've loved, but man, the old movies, hands down, I dig them a lot more.
Well, it's like time travel. I love foreign movies, and you get to watch like an old Italian movie and kind of see what it's like to live in Italy in the '60s, and that's something I love about old movies. Um, and yeah, this one was like this one and Doctor Strangelove were the first kind of political comedies. I mean, there's a lot of jokes in this movie I didn't really understand when I was younger. That I really
Hold on,
liked.
which movie? You mean
Oh, this one.
Manchurian?
Yeah, yeah. There's just like some jokes and stuff in it that I didn't really get when I was a kid. Um,
Right.
there's one scene I really like that I was explaining it to my wife. She's seen it, but it's been a while. It almost
Yeah.
reminds me of like Seinfeld. There's a scene where Frank Sinatra and he has like Lawrence Harvey has a new attaché who is from Korea, I believe, and it almost seems like a Seinfeld scene. He's like, "Hey, I was gonna get your guy a Christmas card, but I think he's Buddhist or something." And he's like, "No, he's not Buddhist." And he goes, "Well, I figure if he was, then he'd have to give me a Buddhist card, and we'd start this whole thing." And like, I was joking. I was like, "Yeah, you could put the little Seinfeld bass over that scene when they're talking." And the dialogue's great. Janet Leigh's great. Um, yeah, it's really. I'm really glad you picked this one because like I wouldn't have even thought to talk about this one on the show because it's been so long, and I was so glad to get to rewatch it. Um,
Oh, yeah, I would, I mean, I have a lot of favorite films from back then, but that one is top 10, hands down. Oh, yeah. And yeah, that scene, I just am astounded, her wearing the Queen of Diamonds.
yeah,
I mean, that is astounding scene, man.
the part where there's a scene in it where you see it from the point of view of the brainwashed soldiers, and everyone that's talking to them is like they're old ladies at like a tea party, but really it's a bunch of soldiers. Um, the way they shot that because it's one long take where the camera pans all the way around and when it circles back around everybody's changed and they had two sets and so they were showing one and then when the camera was on this one they slid this one out and slid another one in. I read a whole thing about how they shot that because I was like when I was a kid when I say kid I mean like 17, 18. But when I was like yeah when I'd watch it I was like how in the world did they do that, and there's a million good shots like that. I got a funny story
Well,
about
that movie, I mean, it may come as a little bit of a shocker, really, and I can't really reveal too much, but there was something personal about that movie for me.
Oh yeah.
And what I mean is that due to certain circumstances, Um, I'll just say that humans can be hypnotized, and they can also, with post-trauma stress, man, or certain experiences, I think a person to get, I think that film really isn't far off from what humans are able to do to other
Capable.
humans.
Huh.
I really don't. And brainwashing and shock and trauma, post-trauma stress, the hypnosis of life. Man, I mean, it in terms of psychology, it's
Yeah.
practically right on, you know.
Yeah, I mean, what you opened up with talking about, it does feel kind of like relatable to nowadays, just how much we're bombarded with stuff, the influence of so much input. I see what you mean. Like, it does feel like a version of hypnosis sometimes. sometimes.
Oh, it is
Um,
hypnosis, but I think it starts in humans at a very young age. I mean,
mhm.
I think literally once we're born, right up till we're, maybe till 3 years of age, we start becoming incredibly hypnotized and conditioned by our outside world.
Hmm.
And if you have a large family, like I did, I was taught to be, violent and do things I wouldn't have normally done if I was coming from a different place.
Hmm.
And what I'm saying, Jeffrey, is this stuff goes right in your brain, and if you're not careful, you can act it out
Mhm.
without even meaning to. If you see enough violence, and if you see a lot of weird stuff as a kid, uh, these things really, really can hold power, you know?
Mhm.
So, I mean, how many people were in your family?
Oh, I have 5 brothers and sisters, but they didn't all live with us. A couple of them were grown, so I grew up with just my 2 sisters and my mom because everybody else was out of the house.
Okay. Yeah, that doesn't, I mean, I don't want to get into like a psychiatrist session, but I mean, I was the last of 7,
Right.
and
Yeah, I'm the
they
baby.
were all still around a pretty long time. But anyway, man, what I mean is that for me, the movie hit too close to home,
Oh yeah.
and it's just so weird. It's like kind of all of it.
There's James Edwards. I love that guy.
James Edwards, right?
Yeah,
Right.
he's awesome. He's great. Yeah, it's funny. So you mentioned singing in the '80s. It was like it got pulled because of the JFK assassination, and so it was out for a little while in '62, and then it was like out of circulation until about '88. So I wonder if like you saw it when it finally saw light of day.
No. I mean, well, maybe. Yeah, they might have like redone it or something. But like I said, it was early '90s.
Early '90s.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah.
But there's so many things about it, Jeffrey. Like when Lawrence Harvey is having that great summer with the blonde girl,
Right.
and he's fallen in love. It's all great, and then his hypnosis kicks in. I don't know, man. I understood it too much.
Yeah. It's a dark movie. It's really good though. The only thing I don't love about it is the epilogue. I wish it would end after the big scene at the election scene. I don't. There's a scene at the very end where Sinatra stands by a window and it's very cinematic. I don't know. That's my least favorite part. I'll tell you a funny story about this.
I mean, maybe I understand, but he says something in that scene that also hits home for me, Jeffrey, is that
Mhm.
he says poor Raymond, or poor
Yeah, yeah.
guy, because I mean he didn't mean to get in that position.
Right.
Uh, and I feel that's how humans are. We don't mean to get in certain positions we get in.
Exactly.
And I think it happens a lot. I see it happen around me.
Mhm.
And I've been in positions I don't want to be in. So and I don't know, that just that one line, and I I mean I almost want to say, well, poor humans.
Right. I like the
Uh,
speech. I don't know. I just feel like it's I feel like it could end before that, but I mean, I've grown to like it because I just love the movie. A funny story about this movie that I really, really love is I don't know if I've ever told you this, but for years and years, my wife and I were film projectionists when it was still like 35 millimeter film.
right.
And there's a story that Frankenheimer was at a screening, like when it came out, and like I feel like he was in Spain or something. And they're watching the movie, and all of a sudden, this entire scene is gone. And so he runs up to the projection booth and he's like, "Hey, you messed up. You missed the reel." And the projectionist was like, "Oh no, I didn't miss it. I cut it out. I think the film works better without it." And
Wow.
I love that. I love that a projectionist had the cojones to like edit John Frankenheimer's movie. I think that's really cool.
Well, that's
Have
kind
you
of
seen?
incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really funny. Have you seen any? Do you know a lot of his other movies? Have you seen like Ronin or Seconds or any of
I'd
his other
like
ones?
to. I Seconds I tried to watch for a while, Jeffrey, but it was kind of freaking me out at the time.
Yeah, it's
So
weird.
I didn't go all the way through it. I think it's when I guess they're having like a big orgy or something,
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a Rock Hudson. There's a scene where we get to see Rock Hudson have an orgy in a grape,
Yeah.
like a grape crusher where they're making wine.
Yeah.
Um, he's a weird director because he was kind of just like this, like studio heavy. And oh, also, I'll send you a link. There's a really good documentary about the making of the Island of Dr. Moreau because that was just like a nightmare to make, and they brought him in to finish it up and shape everybody up. And man, that's a good documentary.
They brought Frankenheimer in?
Yeah, somebody else was directing it. And
Really?
have you seen that one? It's got Marlon Brando and Val Kilmer.
Well, I watched a documentary on how like totally screwed up that the making of that was.
Oh yeah, that's the movie. So you saw that? Yeah.
No, I did, but I've actually never seen the film whole way through.
I don't
Um,
mind. I like Frankenheimer. I mean, it's a mess of a movie, but I don't mind messes. You know, it's good. Ronin's pretty good. Ronin is kind of like a sort of sister film to this because it's about an assassination. It's got Jean Reno and
right.
De Niro, and it's pretty good. But do you watch a lot of movies like when you're on tour and stuff, or at home? Are you a big movie guy?
Oh yeah, man. Yeah. So what a good film is as great as a good book.
Yeah, I love
Um,
them.
now what you were saying about how you like messes of movies. I mean, I'm the same way. I mean, it's like even if the Island of Dr. Moreau, and it's a 1930s film, you know that, right?
Yeah, the original. Yeah, yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, they redid it. So I mean, even well, Marlon Brando's character as this cult leader. I mean, he did an amazing makeup
Yeah,
on that.
there
I
was all
mean,
these
he
stories
really
about
does
how.
look like he looks like a totally sick motherfucker, man. It's amazing.
I
Amazing.
guess I guess the story with that is that he wanted to have his double on set as much as possible, and so he made the makeup and sunglasses so he was like barely recognizable. So he'd only have to come out when he had because
I believe it.
he was known for being a lazy man when it came to movies later on in life. Um, yeah, Frankenheimer's not one of the guys like I know all of his films, but yeah, I remember after I saw Manchurian Candidate, I remember when I was younger, just like trying to find as many as I could. This is, of course, like pre YouTube. Now I can find them all, but back then it was hard to track that stuff down. What's the last thing you saw you really liked? Have you seen anything newer lately?
Um, well,
or new to you?
No, it was just a weird occurrence. And what it is that there's this Twilight Zone episode called The Trouble with Templeton. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I have seen that one. Yeah.
Okay, so that the lead actor in that, Brian Ahern, okay, what was the main actor in the Twilight Zone. So last night a movie was on from 1931, and it starred Brian Ahern because he was a big star back then. I mean, like in the 30s, and then as he's older man, he's in this Twilight Zone episode. The wild thing is, Jeffrey, is I found out that Brian Ahern moved to Venice, Florida, where I grew up in.
Oh wow.
And he lived there, you know. I mean, I think he was there when I was there. And I just found that so weird because The Trouble with Templeton, I mean, that's another one I totally identified with.
Is that the one where the guy?
I thought he did a great acting job, and to think he was in this town I grew up in.
Is the trouble with Templeton? Is the trouble with Templeton? Is that the one where? Remind me is that the one where he's like in jail, or am I thinking of another one?
No, he's not in jail. He's an aging actor in Hollywood, and his wife has died, his best friend has died, and he's taking part in this play. And he act, you know, through a time slip, he's back in the 1920s, and he meets his wife and his best friend in a speakeasy, and you know, they kind of deride him and upset him, but they hand him a script, and then he leaves sort of upset, and he realizes that it was all a play that they put on for him to stop living in the past. And then he goes and joins the play to which he was rehearsing, and the director was a real asshole to him, and that's how he walks out the door and then ends up in the 1920s.
Oh, maybe I haven't.
Yeah,
maybe I'm mixing that one up.
You should see it as soon as you can, man. It's great.
You know what it is? I just remember this. Okay, so you know, back before DVD, I'm an old man. When they would have those Twilight marathons, I would pop my VHS in and hit record and just leave. And then during the week, I'd go back and watch them. And I remember I didn't get all of that one. I had like the first 10 minutes of it. And then this is like before you could stream it. So I've seen the first half. I've never seen the end. So I'm going to look that one up. I'll probably watch that tonight. That's really cool.
No, man, it's great. And, you know, you're younger than me, but, you know, wait till you're 50 and, you know, and the music is either happening or not. But, you know, for any aging performance artist, man, it can totally hit home, you know.
Yeah. Do you have an all-time, like, one favorite movie or one favorite filmmaker?
You know, the picture of Dorian Gray from 1945. I mean, that film has always hit me hard. That would be in the top 10 too, along with Manchurian.
Yeah, I've never seen that one. That's like there's like a handful of, you know, or several like classics I haven't seen.
Yeah, man, find that. It's too incredible. And Jeffrey, I mean, there's weird things in it. You know, prostitutes and drugs and you know, it was made in 1945. You know, they were really going out on a limb, man.
That's cool. Yeah, there's so many. Part of the reason I'm doing this podcast is like because I know a little bit about movies, but there's so many things I've never heard of. Well, cool, man. This was fun to do. Do you have shows coming up or new album or anything you want to plug yet? What do you got going on right now?
You know, I have a new album coming out in about 2 months or in the fall. And I really dig it, you know. I mean, I dig the album, but it just because of COVID, it got, you know, kept being pushed back, and Bloodshot went under, and all sorts of wild things. But listen, back to your thing about a favorite film I've seen recently. On Saturday night, 1931, Grand Hotel with Greta Garbo and John Barrymore. It's a talkie.
Oh yeah.
But man, I dug the hell out of that film. I you know, And I'm a huge John Barrymore fan. And
Yeah, he was great. Yeah.
amazing. And my old girlfriend, Melon, who I met in Athens, Georgia,
Mhm.
what was an absolute Greta Garbo freak. And she used to try to dress like her and all this bizarreness. But I mean, watching Greta Garbo in that film, Jeffrey, I was like, holy shit. I was like, that's where Melon got her persona.
That's funny.
But I found that bizarre because when I was younger, John Barrymore was a huge role model for me.
Oh yeah.
So it was kind of odd that Melon was into Greta Garbo and I was into Barrymore. Like,
That's funny. Yeah. Is that like your favorite? Are your favorite kind of years like those classic Hollywood years, like 1930s to 50s? Is that some of your favorite stuff?
I think it's astounding. And I think that, the 30s, I mean, Jeffrey, I'm sure you know this, but what do they call? Oh, Code. Remember when it was pre-Code Hollywood?
Yeah, pre-code Hollywood. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, man, there is some raunchy shit in those old movies.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, there really is. I mean, in terms of violence, and there's a lot of sexual innuendos that go on. I mean, it's so bizarre.
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
it's bizarre because it's so before my time,
Yeah,
Um,
I used to buy these VHS tapes. Like video stores would have like these cheap public domain VHS tapes, and it would be a lot of those like early Hitchcocks, like the British movies. And
yeah.
that was like some of the first movies I like used to like really get into, like Lady Vanishes and Rebecca and all that stuff. And man, you
Rebecca's
mentioned
incredible. Yeah.
yeah, they're all. I love Hitchcock's early stuff. I mean, I like a lot of it. It's fun. You mentioned the code. Speaking of that, one thing I noticed in this movie is like the shot I was talking about earlier, where he shoots the milk jar and then he shoots the girl in the head, and they're in the same shot together. And I think it's 1961 was the first. I think Fistful of Dollars is the very first movie where you see somebody pull a trigger and then somebody gets shot in the same frame, because they had the rule where they wouldn't show that. And then this
Right
came out
on.
like a year. I think this came out like a year after Fistful of Dollars. So this must have been like an early movie where they. I could be totally wrong. There might be some film historian shaking his head at me when they see this, but I remember reading a lot about how like they had this rule where like someone pulls the trigger, then you cut to the guy dying. You don't have them in the same shot. And so anyway,
Absolutely.
all those codes and laws are so crazy. Like my kids are getting older now and watching movies, and they think it's really funny that in a PG-13 movie they can say the F word once, but if they say it twice, then it's rated R. They're like, well, what's the difference if I hear it 3 times, 5 times? Like
Yeah.
rules in films are so arbitrary and strange. Like everything, rules in general are strange.
Rules are totally bizarre. I know. Yeah, Jeffrey, Vertigo, Hitchcock, it was on the other night. That, I there's a lot of that little run in there, Rear Window, Vertigo. Those films astound the hell out of me, man.
Rear Window is so great. One of the ones I loved when I was younger was Rope, because it's made to look like it's all one continuous take. And
Yeah,
and one thing that's funny, it's based on a real couple. It was like a gay couple that
yeah,
decided they just want to kill somebody just to see what it feels like. And when they
yep,
in the actual film, they never acknowledge that they're gay because it was made in 1941. They just kind of like
right.
hint at it a little,
Yeah.
and that's like that kind of a funny. I think it's one of his like earlier colored movies too. But yeah, that's yeah. Did you get much into European stuff and Japanese, or were you mostly like? Do you mostly just like the classic Hollywood stuff, or do you get into foreign movies at all?
Well, I wanted to tell you that, I mean, I hate to say this, but I've actually never really watched real early Hitchcock.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
What
I
about
need to.
Rebecca?
I mean, I know I need to. It's just, I mean, Jeffrey's just those 50s ones. My
Yeah.
mind is so freaking blown by them.
I mean, you saw Rebecca. That's pretty early. I'd
That's
recommend.
40s. Yeah, yeah.
I'd recommend. Yeah, I like Lady Vanish. 39 Steps might be my favorite. That one's really good. I feel like there's one. Maybe that's the one with Peter Lorre. Some of those movies kind of bunch up in my brain, but Yeah, Rear Window, Vertigo, those are my two. It's Psycho, of course, is just so mind blowing. Like when you watch it now, if you've never seen, like when I saw it like first time, I was like 18 or 19, and it still freaks you out like certain. Um,
It's
but
totally
yeah,
incredible. And like, Rear Window, I don't know, man. I mean, in Carborough and Chapel Hill, I spend a lot of time observing people, you know,
mhm.
also observing myself when I can, when I can. Um, but I think if you observe people, you'll see the wildest fucking things. It's like, and the idea that, he's looking out his window and he sees how all these people live. And I mean, Jeffrey, it could be any of us, it's like,
Right.
if you look at anybody's life, how sort of bizarre we live, you know?
Um, a funny little fact in Rear Window is the piano player in Rear Window that he watches is
I
the real
love
life.
that music he played. That music is too great. But go on.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
no, do you know who that is?
I do not.
It's the real life David Seville, the guy that created Alvin and the Chipmunks.
No,
That's
I
the
didn't
guy
know
that,
that. Okay. Well, now,
according,
what was he? Was he a musician?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I can't swear by this because I just read it once, and maybe this is just bullcrap that somebody told me. But
Right.
I read or heard on a commentary track one time that that it was the real life David Seville, which I thought was cool. David Lynch loves Rear Window. I know that's one of the movies he really loves.
Well, I Jeffrey, I would say he's my favorite modern director, hands down. I'm a
Lynch.
huge Lynch fan, and if I really thought about it, I might have said Blue Velvet to talk about tonight.
Yeah, that's all right. We got on to Blue Velvet. Um, the first David Lynch movie I think I saw was Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, and I'd never seen a second of the show. And so
Yeah,
I know a lot of people didn't like that movie because they were fans of the show. I
right.
was just floored by the movie, and I just like, oh man, I just wanted to see everything he did. And I've been a massive fan. I don't know if I've ever given it to you, but we did a tribute to Lynch in Atlanta with a bunch of local musicians, and we played like all those Roy Orbison songs. Um, but we came up with some new arrangements. I'll have to send you that. Um,
Please do, man. If you ever do it again, let me know. Yeah, man. I mean,
yeah, we'll get you to come play it, man. It'll be fun. When you were talking about watching people, I recommend. I don't know if have you seen the show called How To with John Wilson on HBO?
no, but I'll check it out.
It's like
Oh, yeah.
it's this weird documentary series where this guy just films stuff in New York, and it'll be just like strange images. It's not a surreal show; it's a funny show, but he'll just like yeah, it's hard to explain.
No, I've seen it. And he walks around and he just kind of, it's like 30-minute show and he just sort of walks and observes people or talks to them.
yeah, but
Yeah.
it'll have like a theme. Like the theme will be like I don't know. Like there's one where he's teaching people how to make small talk and stuff like that. But I feel like you'd
No,
love that.
I love that show, but did they take it off?
No, there's a new season. Well, there was a second season that came out, but yeah, it was good. Um,
Yeah.
well, cool. We're about out of time. Did you have a film recommendation that people should watch?
No, but I wanted to tell you, it's like in
Okay.
Blue Velvet, I would have loved to have played either Dean Stockwell's character, who I think is too freaking great, or Frank Booth. I mean, either one of those guys, man, I think it's too fantastic.
Oh, that movie is just unstoppable. The the whole mood and look of that movie is just so incredible. Um, I saw that alone in my bedroom when I was about 16 or 17, and yeah, that's one of those movies that like completely sticks with you.
Well, I know a movie's really good when I go back to see it a few days later.
Yeah,
So
I was
Blue
like that with
Velvet was one of those. One thing is, the prostitute that's dancing on top of the car,
yeah.
when they're beating Kyle MacLachlan up. Remember that? Okay, so
Mhm.
she's a waitress in Wilmington and North Carolina. So Lynch had just found her in this cafe and said, "You got to be in my movie." So me and my friend ate lunch, and she was our waitress, man.
Wow.
Too cool.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But
Um,
Yeah, man,
Yeah,
there's not much more for me to say except, Manchurian Candidate, I think is about all of us.
yeah,
You know?
man. Well, yeah, I appreciate you coming on and talking about movies with me. It's my favorite thing to do, to talk about movies.
Jeff,
um,
Jeffrey, that's cool, man. Go ahead and do a few seasons. Call me back. We'll choose another film, man.
yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, thanks for coming on. My recommendation is I would tell people to watch John Frankenheimer's Seconds because it has a very similar. Actually, it feels like you mentioned Twilight Zone earlier. It kind of feels like a long Twilight Zone episode. I haven't seen it in a minute, but it's about Rock Hudson changing his identity. Which there's several movies like that. There's a Japanese movie called Face of Another that's really good. But yeah, I recommend checking out Seconds, and Ronin is, from what I remember, is pretty good. But
Well, what
anyway,
year is Ronin?
Ronin's from the '90s. I want to say
Okay, so
1996.
it's later. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not fantastic, but it's like a kind of a sister film to this because, like I said, it's later Frankenheimer, about assassination. It's got a great cast. Yeah,
And
I think
what
you
is,
might like
hey,
that.
Jeffrey, before we
Mhm.
split, what is
Yeah.
Seconds exactly about?
Best I remember is it's about like I said, Rock Hudson. He's trying to start a new life, and so he goes and gets a plastic surgeon to redo his face. And but it's been so long. I just like I don't totally remember the ending, or not that I want to tell you, but
Yeah.
it's very trippy, and like you said, the orchard scene sticks out because you don't expect to see Rock Hudson in an orgy. so,
Well, the thing about it, I mean, when I was watching it, I guess it was my frame of mind, but I was like, man, this is too tripped out. I was probably in a surreal space myself, so
yeah, man.
I don't know. But Jeffrey, listen, great to see you, man, and
Yeah,
thanks
you
for
too. It's always
inviting me.
good. Yeah,
Okay,
man. Thanks for coming on. All
listen,
right.
we'll do a show soon, hopefully
Yeah, for
sometime.
sure. I'll be in touch. All right. Thanks, Dex.
Okay, Jeffrey,
Sleep well.
thanks. See you later, man.